Hello and welcome to ThisConnect. Karthik, what are we talking about?
Specs, baby. Specs. Not these.
I immediately went to reading glasses when you said that. I immediately did.
That's how old we are now.
I only need them for reading glasses. I'm actually quite proud of myself.
Well done.
Otherwise, I see everything. So my eye of Sauron, up to here, difficult. After that, crystal clear.
Yeah.
How come specs? What's going on in your head?
Two things. One
Only?
thing,
Only?
Yeah, two things. Two, which are straight up right now what triggered the idea of having this conversation. One was yesterday, one of my friends, he messaged me, he'd watched the view of the Camry. And he said, "Hey, come on, man! I enjoyed it, but obviously he's going to say that dost hai." But he was like, "You didn't mention boot space. Liters कितना है, ground clearance कितना mm है. वो बताओगे तो कुछ तो context आएगा." And he drew parallels.
How close a friend is he?
He's elder as well, so there's a slight difference in that way.
I think so. You can't see it on the internet. What the fuck is your problem?
So
You'll have to mute all of that out.
So he was drawing references to his other cars, which he has, one of which is a Merc. So he knows how much space there is in that. Ground clearance is not so great in the Merc, all of that. So he said, I'd be drawing references because Camry, Merc, so in that size space. So, and because it's him, and he knows stuff about cars, he knows how specs and all of that.
But can't look them up for some strange reason.
Because he's no longer following automotive.
But he's interested in the Camry just enough to hear your view out, but not interested enough to look up the boot space of a Camry because it's piqued his interest.
No, so why that part of the conversation is interesting is a different thing. Okay, so we'll come back to that. And the second was the conversation we had this morning in your meeting, the informal meeting, where we were discussing how our colleagues who are helping out with creating the MotorInc experience in other ways, which you will see, we're working on specs and what the specs really meant to each one of them in different ways. You're seeing different slices of what specs could mean, and then Shumi provided the perspective of how we see specs, right? Even though we're saying brochures are not important, but there's so much you could get from specs, right? So that, to me, both the things together, where on the one hand, okay, so the first example, this is Abhishek, Abhinav's elder brother, right? So he used to be very embedded in the auto space at one time. And he loves cars and the idea of, he's always like this, he doesn't need a car in his life, but he's always with this idea of, गाड़ी लेनी है, मजा आएगा, यही तो time है, and like that kind of stuff.
Abhishek, if after all of this you're still worried about the boot space in your Camry and this is your attitude to cars, I'm sorry, you're looking up the wrong spec. Just go drive your car and have fun.
So the thing for him is, he comes from that time when we used to look at the specs seriously and we would trust the numbers that were there. So that's,
there is such a huge joke in there.
So that's the thing. So then I had to kind of explain to him that today, when you're talking about boot space, the boot space can mean so many different things. It can mean what's under the boot floor included. It can include what's above the parcel tray, and who's claiming what is a completely ambiguous thing.
Hang on. You can go one step further back. You can go one step further back. There is an issue of overdrive somewhere in the past where they found a dynamometer and they dynoed a whole bunch of bikes and the numbers went all over the place. And there was a huge hue and cry. The manufacturers was extremely upset about it. Today, to take an example out of a hat, if TVS says that the RTX 300 makes 35 bhp, how do you know? I'm not saying TVS is lying, okay? TVS is typically a very, very thorough and law-abiding organization. I'm not accusing them of anything. I'm just think about it like this. In India, we know that there usually is a side channel to get anything done. So there is a government body or a series of bodies who you can go to and say, tell me the official spec of my vehicle, which I have to publish in so many places legally, and this is what I have to tell customers. One of those is the ARAI fuel economy test. where it says this bike will give you 44 kilometers per liter, which we've learned to interpret as this is how it translates to the real world or not. Like the IDC battery range figure, we know is 70% usually works out in the real world for most people. We know these things. How do you know that that number is actually accurate? What's the basis of this trust? That's exactly what he's saying. He says when there are non-regulated numbers, like how do you measure boot space is reasonably unregulated? Now you will start to see the regulation numbers appearing when a manufacturer claims boot space, which I've seen in a few brochures now. Until that happened, I can say anything I want. I just have to figure out a way of measuring that reaches the number I'm happy to reach. What?
Nothing. This is like to the other end. But okay.
It's an extreme example, right? When somebody says this motorcycle's wheelbase is 1358 millimeters, it is right in front of your eyes, so you assume it must be 1358
See, for a
millimeters.
lie to be good, it has to be believable. So,
And again, I'm not saying that the manufacturers are lying. I'm saying you are taking a whole bunch of the specification on faith. And we've come to the age where what is not available, what is not believable on faith is no longer published. Okay, I have been helping him with cars. He has been helping me with bikes. I don't know the curve weight of a single car, and I have looked at 28 cars in full, variant by variant detail over the last X number of weeks. I don't know the curve weight of any of the cars. I know the curve weight of all of the motorcycles he has seen. I don't know the unladen ground clearance of 95% of the vehicles which are sold on the idea of ground clearance, which happen to be SUVs. So I'm sorry, Abhishek, but if you're looking for the boot space and a camera, you're barking up the wrong freaking tree. Go to the Toyota shop with 2 or 3 suitcases, you'll have a far more accurate picture than whatever number Karthik can look up and give you. And since Karthik can look it up, you could do it too.
and I think the good thing about this scenario is that when it's good, we'll just say it's good, which means in most cases,
It'll work
for,
out.
for that category, that vehicle segment, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that is where we've also had to rework things, how we do things.
Yeah.
And it's fine because it was, we had to kind of say that we can do it complicated or do we make it simpler? And obviously simpler is sometimes a little bit harder, but we had to, over the last 3 years of evaluating all the vehicles, we've now built that, as we say, the universe, the database of the different boots in specific, right? How they're shaped, what they're doing, and which works well, which doesn't, and what to expect from different brands.
Yep.
We've got a handle on that. So when we approach a car, approach a segment, we know where we are at, kind of, and what we'd be looking for today.
Yep.
So that number today has its meaning and value today has substantially decreased for me.
Yeah.
Like even right now, I've come back from one drive. I'm not talking about it now because we don't know when we're going to be talking about it in public because prices aren't out. But now, whatever the number was, did it even register in my head? No. I just looked at the boot and I said, yeah, okay, this works. This is
Yeah,
looking good.
he's basically come back with a lot of detailed evaluations of various aspects of the car, which we will discuss when we sit down and discuss it, and a general sense which he has not shared with me about, I think that's a good car, or I think they really messed that up,
Yeah.
or whatever the middle zone of this continuum is.
So the boot space is a very easy example to talk about because it's very transparent in the sense of what is happening and how you can also assess it, right? And the other example that Abhishek had only brought up was about ground clearance, right? And I get it. Now, I want to go back, like, there was a time when these numbers were being shared. Like, today, we do not even talk about it. But bore and stroke. And while I was doing the bike specs, right, it was so refreshing and it was so nice to see bore and stroke being mentioned so clearly everywhere, right? In most places,
Yes,
at least.
more places.
Right? But in cars today, that number's practically been wiped off. Just like curb weight has been wiped off, just like ground clearance is being wiped off. And it's because at one time you were looking at it from a functional standpoint, that this is a functional need. Today, all these have got swept into marketing space, right? And which is where that muddying of the waters, so to speak, because you want to get a bigger number so that you can be called segment best and stuff like that, has created this whole pool of confusion now, right? Instead of it providing you with a vision and an eye on being able to choose better, it's made things more confusing. And this is something that we as MotorInc, we're doing all the time. When we go for these events, we're telling the car makers that you should You want to claim the bigger number, that's fine, but also claim the smaller number so that the people who are looking for it, it's available for them, so that they are better informed, they are in a better place to decide about your product.
But you've not understood the strategy. It is called weaponized confusion.
Who's winning in that?
It's called WC, okay? And that's exactly where it belongs in terms of as a good strategy to attract customers. Okay, so the WC strategy, which really needs to be flushed out of our system, basically says a lot of Indian car buyers today and motorcycle buyers today do not have the first idea about their cars. It's not clear to them. And it's not their fault. They're not dumbasses. They're just buying their first vehicles. They're just buying their second vehicle. So the database that they're using is very limited. So they are relying on what they've understood about vehicles so far from friends, family, word of mouth, what reviewers are telling them, which honestly there are more reviewers telling them frivolous nonsense than there are people who are telling them the real stuff. The guys who tell them the frivolous nonsense can often be paid off to say those frivolous things. And the whole thing is weaponized confusion. And the weaponized confusion basically makes you like soft, risen dough when you come into the shop. Now the sales guy can mold you into basically whatever kind of bread that he wants from you. So he can say, I have incentives on sourdough, so he can make that out of you, or incentives on roti, so he can below you, and he can basically make it work for his advantage, for their purpose, and for what the organization is telling them. And don't think that the dealers are slightly involved and mostly involved and blameless and not blameless, because it's a gray area there too. The dealer is under pressure to sell what the manufacturer is forcing them to sell to. The manufacturer is trying to push into the dealer what inventory has been created. Sometimes the inventory has been created by mistake in quantity, or in the terms of the variants created, or in terms of the colors that were painted and sent out.
I think I'm a little this about this idea of it being a good guy or a bad guy. I don't think that's exactly the scenario. Nobody wants to scam someone, but the circumstances or how the system is designed is far more complicated than it just being a good intention or a bad intention.
Exactly. That's
right?
what exactly what I mean.
That's
There's
what he's saying.
lots of push and pull at every level, right? Stark examples that are in public domain, so we can discuss them. KTM produced too many machines for so long that they nearly went bankrupt.
Yeah.
It's just a clerical mistake of somebody at the very top of KTM not deciding, saying, hey, they're not selling as fast as they used to. We need to slow our lines down. Somebody just didn't say that one sentence. Leads nearly to bankruptcy. Think about an alternative scenario. India buys a lot of white cars. It's a fact. These are actual numbers. And let's say Maruti for some reason decided not to order white paint in time. Now there is a whole bunch of Marutis out there which are not white, and everybody wants a white Maruti. The dealer will exploit this in one way by raising the premium on the available white inventory. He will also alter strategy, and he will take you, Mr. Risen Doe, and say, but sir, maroon is such a nice color. They're both working strategies. Since you are not sure what you want, you are moldable, and the dealer will use that to their advantage. And why shouldn't they? They're not selling you a bad product. They're just guiding you to a product that you didn't know you wanted, which is whether that is a different or a more expensive trim level, that's a different color than you expected, whether you thought sunroofs were useless because you watched MotorInc, but by the time you got to the showroom, the guy said, sir, without a panoramic sunroof, have you lived?
I'm going to stop you there, because I think that line that you said is awesome. It's beautiful, because you said you don't know what you want. Right? You said you didn't know what you wanted, therefore you can be sold something that is workable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And this goes back to the last time when we spoke on TC. You're talking about somebody who was looking to get a 390 Enduro or the Enduro R, because it has a little bit more suspension travel. Right? And you said he was looking to commute in
Potholes.
In Bengaluru. What exactly are you expecting to encounter to need the Enduro R on Bengaluru roads? I know they're bad, but that bad?
Yeah. I think, in fact, manufacturers of SUVs should just stop claiming ground clearance, and the municipal corporation should give you the pothole spec for the city.
That would be awesome. There was a pothole scale.
More
All potholes must meet these criteria.
More employment will be generated if you were to have pothole statistics from every municipal corporation.
That pothole is not the standard. It's a bit too small. Please make it, the base size is 15 centimeters deep.
Yeah. There'd be designations like SPE, Senior Pothole Enumerator. Or APE, which is my favorite, Assistant Pothole Enumerator.
Oh God, yeah. So I think that not knowing what you actually want, need, functionally, gives rise to this dependence on what the numbers, relying on the numbers. Like, again, like to take an example, we from the cars, the Creta, and this is something that came up recently about turbos versus NAs, right?
Yep.
Saying that NAs are a thing of the past, turbos are the future, right? And like, the real world says otherwise to me.
Yeah.
You know, that it's far from what this common, whatever you want to call it, flow says. But this is why, because you're looking at specs saying, this is a 1.5 liter, this is a 1 liter, and from that is delivering more power, therefore it's a superior engine. But if it's delivering the same amount of power,
Maybe in racing. More power from a small engine may be a great thing in racing. How is it relevant to the real world?
and this is where the details of the specs
Yeah,
become
it's like the
interesting.
audiophiles always say, so we who are non-audiophiles say, look, that little speaker produces such great sound. And the audiophiles will say, look, if you want great sound, you have to have a giant speaker. The air volume governs everything. So you might believe that the technological achievement of making a bookshelf speaker sound that good is incredible, and maybe it is. But the true audiophile will say, bro, you want sound? You have to give sound space. What kind of space? Big room, giant speakers, clean ears. Simple. And in the same way, everybody does not need the smallest engine to be the most powerful. That's Max Verstappen's thing. He uses that for his job. But do you think Max Verstappen goes and buys a family sedan and then looks for the smallest engine making the most horsepower? No.
Yeah. So the specs thing is, so the ground clearance aspect, I want to come, we started talking about the motorcycle, the enduro, and the ground clearance thing over there was stuck in my head. And we were again discussing this, as in I wanted Abhishek to get a clearer picture. And I was thinking that, like many people are probably not also looking at it that way, right? And we were looking at ground clearance as a figure. But that one figure doesn't translate the same way in different vehicles.
No.
It just does not.
No.
And that's the thing that we also forget, because each one of these doesn't mean the same thing. You can have 128 millimeters of ground clearance on a car and it will be terrible over our roads. And you can have 128 millimeters on another car and it'll be absolutely fine.
Yeah.
How? Wheelbase is different. Track is different. Suspension tune is different. The purpose of the cars is different. The vehicles is different. So what kind of load they're going to carry, what they're going to do is completely different.
And one of them can drive and the other one is just learned.
Yeah.
Huge difference.
Yeah.
There are lots of polos that run around in India who have scrapes all over the bottom of the front lip. Hardware issue. There are also lots of polos who've never scraped that lip. Same hardware, skilled drivers.
Good point. It's actually something that stares at you. Yeah.
My 210 has very low ground clearance. It has been used
It's
on
actually very low, no?
very low ground clearance. It has been used on the road. I have scraped a 210 once, not mine. My 210 has a broken belly pan, which doesn't affect its function. The plastic clip broke. That was done by a colleague, who obviously is a relatively speaking a newer rider. I have actually never scraped my belly pan at all. And I went off-roading with it by mistake. 15 kilometers through a construction zone.
210?
On a 210. Because somebody thought they were taking the right turn, but they were taking the right turn, but that was the wrong fork. So we entered a zone. By the time he realized we were on the wrong side of this mountain, we were already 4 kilometers later. So I said, look, how much worse could it possibly get? We'll go. I'm not saying I'm the most skilled guy, but I'm saying if you can loft the wheel of the 210 over things, you can create ground clearance so that the sump, etc. do not touch. I successfully did that for these 10,000 kilometers that the 210 has been around with me. Out of which, let's call it 7,000 kilometers are on track, which means 3,000 kilometers were in the real world. Nothing scraped. But before I started running my Ducati, which has lots more ground clearance and a lot more suspension travel, there was one time where I had 2 up and I couldn't figure out where the preload button was. I did scrape the Ducati 3 times that day.
The multi?
The multi. I just couldn't remember where the preload button was. So I was going from my house to Lonavala to Pune. So between my house to Lonavala, it scraped in 3 places. And I just could not remember where the preload button was. So when we stopped at Lonavala, I got leisure to get off. I looked through the manual, found the button, changed the setting, never scraped again. Skill and hardware combining badly. So I have 55,000 kilometers on a high ground clearance motorcycle, which I scraped
That's really not a skill thing. That's
No,
just
one second. So, and I'm saying this is how the spec can mislead you, right? I'm saying I have 55,000 kilometers of real world mileage everywhere in India on a high ground clearance, electronically controlled suspension motorcycle, which I scraped 3 times in 55,000 kilometers. I have 10,000 kilometers on a much higher spec suspension, much lower sporty motorcycle with almost no ground clearance to speak of.
Never.
0 scrapes. The spec doesn't matter. Inconvenience, sure. The Tuono approaching a speed breaker, you give it conscious thought. The multi-start, after I figured out where the damn button was, no conscious thought required. I'll deal with it. Sure, convenient. But is the Tuono deal broken because I said, man, I cannot go around this country. It has no ground clearance. Yeah, no. Can.
Yeah. If you choose to, you'll definitely figure out how to work with it.
Yeah, think about it like this, right? Kartikeya is a reasonably skilled driver now. I'm less skilled than him. And there's Hari Singh, let's call it, who's an ex-rally driver, far more level of skill. How low would I have to give Hari a car before all of us scraped the car with the same frequency?
Superb example, yeah.
Right? I don't drive very well, or very often at least. So I would scrape somewhat because I'm just not paying attention to it and honestly do not care. He cares about his cars and he genuinely feels hurt when it gets dented. He's told you this before. So obviously he would pay more attention and he would scrape less. Then Hari walks into the room with like 20 times the experience and 30 times the skill. There's no question of anything scraping. It doesn't matter how low it is.
Yeah.
Before it scrapes, he'll stop and say, that will scrape. I'm refused to drive through this. Finished.
I think this was in season 1. I had spoken about this one time when I was driving with Hari Singh. And this was just like a road travel thing. We were driving from Chandigarh up to Srinagar. First to Jammu and for a rally. And we were traveling with his friends and family. So there was a convoy of 3 cars. One of which was a Fortuner. And I was in an Endeavour. And all the kids were in Hari Singh's car because that was designated the safest car, right? That it could be in. And imagine Hari is driving with a car full of kids up the mountain, and I am behind him in an Endeavour, and try as I might, I cannot drive as, like, he looks like he's just, like, the car's barely moving, it's not rolling or anything, nothing dramatic happening. But he's consistently faster than me, and I am just working to keep up, like to keep him in my sight, like that. And when we finished the drive for that day, and I stopped and I said, "My God, you were really, I was struggling to keep up." So he was like, I was not going fast.
I just-
I was like, oh, shucks.
Yeah.
This feels terrible, right?
Yeah.
But that's it. That's his skill. And the kids, then when they got out of the car, they were like as though they've just come out of, like, watching a movie or something. They just came out of the car, like, chilling, like, oh, wow, that was fun. No drama, nothing.
Yeah.
No talk about, oh, that was such an exciting drive. Oh, uncle drove so well, whatever, nothing like that. It was just like, chalo, we've reached the destination. Now the party continues.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I will also say this: I'm not justifying the skill idea as a way to cancel the spec out. Skill takes time to build. When you have skill, the spec may not matter so much anymore. Fair enough. But I'm again asking you the same question. If I were to be able to create a car market with no spec available, but accurate information available, this car will do these things well and that car will do that thing well. This bike will feel like this and that bike will feel like that. How does it fundamentally change your decision except for the better?
This is actually going to be my part 3 of this.
No, so I came at it from the Apple example, right? Apple phones are now a non-evolving thing. It won't really fundamentally change year to year. Every year you're given the promise of it runs even faster than before. I don't know anybody who outperforms their iPhone on a regular basis. I would do it till iPhone 8. And since iPhone 8, I have not been able to outperform the speed of my phone. And by that I mean, I'm working faster than the phone and the phone is holding me back. And I do a lot of stuff on my phone. Like I write my stories on my phone sometimes. So I can feel that happening. Hasn't happened to me since iPhone 8. So today, all the fear that is being given to you as you're missing out is all basically marketing, right? They'll say, oh, our processor is 30 times faster than the last one. So what? This processor is already faster than me. The new base memory level is 512 kilobytes, megabytes, gigabytes, whatever. So what? I haven't run out of space on my previous one and that's half that. And if you add it up, the spec doesn't make any difference. But that Apple ladder is a very powerful ladder, because when you show up at the Apple store to buy the 512, they will try and sell you the 1 terabyte version instead. And they're very good at it.
And you know why this thought was also banging around in my head? It was because of the Tesla experience, which is right down that road. Because they stopped giving spec out, right? They stopped. So, for instance, nobody will ever ask you about, oh, how come you bought a Tesla? It has an NMC battery. Tesla doesn't officially state what battery chemistry they use, right? They have different battery chemistries depending on the pack size. They are doing their work as to which chemistry is right for what format, right? They're doing that. They're not saying you decide what is right. I'm going to decide. If you want to buy, I'm promising you the outcome. You don't have to get into the kitchen. I'm promising you the outcome will be this kind of performance, this kind of range. How I cook it up is my business, right? And coming from it, from where we have come, it feels odd. Like, where's my lay of the land, right, so to speak. But for the general consumer, does it matter anymore, right? It should be about what the vehicle does and how it meets your needs. And which is why that NMC thing always gets me. Which one of us is a chemical scientist who has done battery research to understand that NMC is not going to last 15 years, 20 years, whatever it is?
Will you last 15, 20 years?
It's just ridiculous. I don't get it when it's been proven that it works. And yes, there will be newer tech that will get better and better, and that will be for everything that we have in our new generation of cars. And this is the other thing you will see. Spec, which you will now, especially when we go more digital and with EVs and all, right? What was spec and what it meant as being sufficient or exciting is going to get degraded way faster than it did in the past. So, which is what he said right in the start. You don't know what you want. It's going to lead you down a terrible road even more and more in the future, because the bikes are going to evolve so much faster.
Yep.
Because they are effectively becoming like gadgets on wheels, right? And that'll apply to the batteries, the motors, what you're doing in the cabins with them. It will change, and I have seen it. So somebody was talking to me saying that not too long ago, it was only a year ago, you were raving about the XEV90 and the BE6 for the suspension and everything. I said, yeah, but that was a year ago. We've had so many more EVs come in that time in the mass market, and they have changed things in that much time. So I cannot go back 1 year ago and say that that's true. No, today's scenario is different. So how I'm evaluating vehicles today, how I'm looking at them today is different. So that may have super tech in terms of semi-active suspension and all, but I have to finally go by what does it do.
And since I have owned motorcycles with semi-active suspension, is all of it better than the best that you could get, which was non-semi-active? Not always. It's a software thing. And always remember, hardware iterates very slowly. Relatively speaking, software can iterate really quickly. Hardware iterations can have massive cost implications. The manufacturers don't want to do it, ideally, which is why you need a recall law for recalls to actually work. Voluntary recalls is BS. Voluntary recalls is I am willing to accept my mistake in public, and there is no penalty for me saying, you know what, I'm not going to admit my mistake in public. That's voluntary recall. So when Ducati rolls out Marzocchi semi-active suspension, which was on my second Ducati, versus Sachs semi-active suspension, I have slightly different hardware approaches to the same idea. The key difference between the two is who did the suspension, what were their goals, and how well did they attack their goals. This motorcycle is meant to be exciting. That motorcycle is meant to be reliable. It changed what they did. Can I say that suspension was 100% superior to this? No, in many ways it was. Can I say that this one 100% inferior to that? No, in many ways it was. But I have a 210, which is a very different kind of motorcycle with fully adjustable, top-of-the-line Orleans. And these are 2016 Orleans. They're not even the latest, which are also electronic now. Can I say that is inferior suspension to these two experiences any particular way at all? Not really. When I set that non-electronic suspension up correctly, and I'm not saying I have the capability to do it. I have friends who have the capability to do it. When you get that right, it is so consistent in how it performs. Sometimes I feel like that's a much superior solution to these. In cars, this is really hard to do. So I understand your pain. You have 4 large and expensive shock absorber units. But to me, a well set up, non-semi-active suspension setup would actually be ideal. And I don't follow the car world, but I want to see how many people still prefer to use semi-active setups in actual racing. Motorsport in two-wheelers and four-wheelers alike, it's mostly non-adjustable.
Correct.
It's the one place where you're using an inferior technology and calling it superior on the street because it's easier to sell. Whereas the old mechanicals still remain the overall superior because they're more consistent. And consistent has value. It's not always the most comfortable or the most sporty. It's the most consistent. You know what's going to happen next.
It should be the sweetest balance, actually. That I look for that sweetness. Somehow that mature tech, the things that have been refined and refined and refined over the years, they have this sweetness to them. They will not be the most exciting, let's say. But there'll be this sense of satisfaction in them, which is just, I love that.
Yeah, so when I had semi-active suspension on my Ducati, now I have partly adjustable suspension on my KTM. I do the same roads. I do them roughly at the same speed. I'm carrying two different kinds of weight because they're two different kind of machines. Can I tell you that the Ducati experience was fundamentally superior? Only in parts. Because when I saw the bumpy stretches coming, I could move to a mode that will make those bumpy just disappear completely. When I got to really good and twisty roads, I could change the setting to something that would make the motorcycle a heck of a lot more sporty. Absolutely. No doubt about it. But can I not find a balance setting on the KTM that I thoroughly enjoy without all of this complexity? Also, yes. So now it's a subjective call. If I knew enough about who I am as a rider and what kind of motorcycles I like, this is not a difficult decision to make. You could go this way or you could go that way. This is a cheap solution, relatively speaking. That is a very expensive solution, and both have pros and cons. But if you don't know, that motorcycle costs less overall than the two suspension units at the front and the rear. The amount of money I could pull out of your pocket because you don't know is massive on this scale. Right? A semi-active adjustable front fork set is about 3 lakh rupees. And the rear suspension, single unit, also fully adjustable and semi-automatic, is also 3 lakh rupees. The KTM on-road is 4.8, I think, now. So in theory, we're going from 4 to 30 lakh rupees. And you come up to, let's call it 7 lakh rupees, you'll see dramatic improvements. From 7 to 30, it's just refinement, nuance, polish. You can only use it if you're skilled and you're tuned in. Right? So when MCN does their annual liter class or whatever, superbike review, I listen to it as entertainment. Because first, if you were to win any one of those 5 machines in a lottery, you would not return it. Second, no matter whether it is the best of that group or not, that is the pinnacle of motorcycle performance technology right now. No doubt about this. As in, for example, if the Fireblade came number 5 in their test and you win a Fireblade in a lottery, you've got one of the best machines on the planet, even if it was number 5 on that test. And 5, nobody on earth except for like 9 people in total have the capacity to exploit these motorcycles to the fullest and say, I got everything that the engineers put into that out of it at that racetrack, on that lap, in that environment. Not possible to do it anymore. And therefore, if I have to buy these 5, I don't want to know what Michael Neves thinks about these motorcycles as much as he's a great journalist. I only want to ride them, test ride them and say, what did I feel the happiest about riding? That's the motorcycle I'm bringing home.
Correct.
I'm telling you, I do not want to know that that's 214 bhp, that's 216, that's 203, that's 205, irrelevant. I can put an Akrapovic and take that 250 to 231. I'm sorry, this only works in the pub. And if you're going to the pub, don't take your motorcycle with you, you don't need to demonstrate it. When you tell your friends, I put a 15 lakh rupee Akrapovic on my 70 lakh rupee motorcycle, now it gets 230 bhp, first of all, you're being a jackass. Second of all, you can't really use this performance. And third of all, how much are you going to compensate for? Because it doesn't matter.
Okay. No, I'm with you.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Right? We rode, we were both there, Panigales, Valencia. There was the stock bike with 201 or 205 bhp, and there was the Akrapovic bike with 214, 215. Could we not feel the extra 10 bhp kick in down the straight towards the end? Sure.
What I remember about that bike the most what felt different about it was actually the stance, because it was taller. You remember? That was the main...
Because of the under thing.
Because they wanted more cornering clearance, because it had slicks also.
Yeah.
So I remember that suddenly, like, you go from the street bike and to that bike, and you suddenly feel that you're sitting taller off the bike.
Fundamentally, you've got 10 more bhp, so you're about 3/4 down the straight, and it suddenly pushes you a little bit harder, which the other bike was failing to do.
The reason why I brought that up was because while the horsepower figure was the most dramatic thing, is this one thing which you cannot put again in that sheet where it said, okay, weight is reduced and this bar is up and all of that. But the thing that actually, even when we were getting the briefing, the thing that they said was, the thing that will make this bike really feel different is this, that it's
Yes.
off the ground, it's taller. And because of that, you have more cornering clearance, you're on slicks, so you'll be able to use that more.
If they hadn't told you that in the briefing, 95% of the people would not have caught on to it. And this is a group of journalists. This is not a group of amateurs. This bike pushes you harder down the straight. You begin to feel the difference 3/4 down the straight before you hit the brakes on the main straight of Valencia. Did anybody come back and say, you know what, the stock bike was just not impressive? It's the Akrapovic bike that really impressed me. Not a single person at all. The bike was mind-blowing. There's no two ways about it. The addition of the Akrapovic made no fundamental difference to your experience. It also did not fundamentally change our ability to exploit it on that day. Right?
That was a beast of a bike, man.
Yeah.
And
I ride a sports naked at the racetrack, not even a sports bike, from 2016. The pinnacle of 2016, arguably. We are 10 years later. It hasn't even occurred to me that I should be upgrading from that motorcycle. Because that 175 bhp motorcycle still has more than I can give it. So every time I look at the spec, it's a normal motorcycle by the spec of 2025 sports bikes. Every time I ride it, I'm like, yeah, but I am like a normal motorcycle by the spec of 1996. So it doesn't matter if I have 10 more bhp or not. I'm not going to be able to use it. And therefore, I'm in a happy state where I can enjoy my motorcycle fully with zero expenses. Why would I spend money on this? I'm buying flight tickets to go to Chennai a lot. I'm being put up in hotel rooms, or I'm buying hotel rooms a lot. I'm putting fuel in it, or somebody's giving me fuel to put in the bike a lot. We are putting brake pads on it on a regular basis. These are great expenses. Do I need clip-ons?
those are different numbers and used well. That's fine.
No, I'm saying, do you need the accoutrement of motorcycling to enter into this?
Okay. So this, I wanted to, the second part that I had said, the second story was about the conversation in office, which was the specs and how you actually use them. That was also, I mean, because when you start breaking it down, like for me, again, it was like literally like it was a refresher. Yeah, I know, this is why we do it. I mean, these are the things we look at. But it's like background processing now, right? So it was really interesting. So it would be awesome if you kind of gave a snapshot of what you did discuss this morning.
So we've been looking at spec in detail, and it's really boring work. And I'm happy to say I use it as a filter. You come into a motorcycle tester's job, you will do specs for the first 4 months. If you're clever, you will use this time to get a sense of how the industry works, how they organize things to look attractive, how they organize things to be functional, and they're both sides in that spec story if you can spot it. If you can't spot it, you'll just be like, man, I came to ride motorcycles and all I'm doing is a spec sheet. Well, too bad, how sad. If you don't survive, I'm happy. Because these are exactly the people I don't want in an industry who think the glamour is why we should do this job, not because it's a great job to do. And the great job requires work. Simple, baseline. So I've been looking at specs for cars. And I've discovered that most manufacturers give you a bewildering plethora of variants because it makes for a ladder with small rungs. So you go into a showroom, you don't know what you want, and you're like, my budget is 11. So he already pegging you, saying 11 means 3 variants from the bottom. Now he's saying, can I turn this into a 15 lakh rupee sale or not? So he's going to say stuff like, hey, but sir, if you give me 11.25 lakh rupees, I will give you the Fearless O plus S some variant. Something. It's a name that you will not be able to remember. There is no way to do it, right? And what changes is instead of the 60 sidewall and 17-inch rim, you get the 55 sidewall and the 18-inch rim. So you don't know anything about cars. So you're going to say, what advantage would I get from that? See, the ride quality will stay the same. But you've got a bigger rim, so it'll look a little bit better and flashier, so it'll look like a more expensive car. And sir, in India, 205 55 R18s are far easier to get than 205 60 17. So it's also easy to replace tires. So basically, you're not spending a lot of money, but you're getting a huge upgrade. So you're like, okay. And sir, in that variant, before that, you only get a puncture kit. Now you get a 185, 75, 15 spare tire, right?
Deep dives.
Right, so he's given you a ladder step, right? So you're like, okay, that sounds interesting enough. So, yeah, I think I can do that. He says, sir, but I'm just saying, I mean, you don't have to, because this is actually this Fearless S plus O plus whatever the hell is awesome. But if you look at our Achievement Plus model, and there's a special offer on the Achievement Plus, which is actually 10% off. If you look at that model, you get all of this stuff right? But the screen is an inch larger. The spare wheel is full size now. And he's just going to build this out till 15 and you have to say no. And it's designed not to let you say no. Because he'll keep coming up with, but sir, for 3,000 rupees, I can give you one more thing. And when you finish with that, then he'll bring up the dealer fitted accessories. Don't forget.
Actually, this I was saying from the standpoint of as users, the specs that, like you were talking about, how rake trail can just be numbers.
Yeah. Now,
Right.
when it comes to motorcycles, it's a little bit simpler because there isn't that much spec to discuss, and a lot more spec is clearly available because it has not become a marketing tool fully. It's going to be turned into a marketing tool. Whatever happens in cars will eventually happen to bikes also. In motorcycles, you can start to correlate certain ideas. There are pitfalls there too. There are lots of people on our forums, Karthik, who are 14 years old, who understand 26 versus 27 as a numerical difference. They do not understand it as a feeling difference. By the time they buy their first motorcycle, they would have dug a hole that they can't come out of. So I'm not saying it's necessarily a good thing. It's just a clearer thing than cars in some cases, right? So for example, when a car says torsional beam axle for the rear versus stabilized or non-stabilized, or they add two more words to it that has links or doesn't have links or whatever, it doesn't give you anything. On a motorcycle, all this nonsense doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It will say preload adjustable, non-preload adjustable. If it's a Yamaha R15, non-preload adjustable, not a stress point.
So, like you, when you were discussing this morning, you were talking about how rake and trail. I'm going to take that as a specific example because for the our colleagues, when Shumi was discussing it, he very clearly gave a translation of how spec can and should be used to then learn from as well, right? Which is to say that you may look at it just every motorcycle, when you look at the difference between the rake of a naked and let's say a sport bike, a fed bike, let's say Duke versus RC, the difference would be what? Not even a degree, maybe?
I think 0.6 or something like that.
Like
Yeah.
half a degree, which on paper is nothing. Visually, you won't even be able to like really say that it's sharper or something, but it's there. But when you ride those bikes, you will feel that difference. So those small things, when they when they have meaning, for you to be able to understand how the machine is actually working, that can also sit there in the specs. And that was the thing that
Yeah, but my fear with this is if you look at it from Excel only, you'll get lost.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to ride the bike and correlate, and you will correlate badly also. First, you will say, so the Duke is more stable. Then you look at the thing and say, hang on, no, wait a minute. The Duke is sharper. The Duke has less rake, and the RC has the more stable front. You'll have to like, what the hell just happened? How is the bike that goes to the racetrack? And then you'll realize that the Duke is so sharp and it goes through traffic really quickly. You need the sharpness for it. Stability is not necessarily the greatest asset of a street naked. But when you come to the racetrack, you're doing the thing at a high performance level. You're closer to the edges of the grip of the tire, etc., etc. There, I don't want the fastest reactions possible. I want the most predictable reactions possible. So they took the Duke and slowed it down to make the RC.
You have the load to make it more feelsome, all of those things, right? Like those clip-ons are not just for show. I mean, on a brochure, it sounds cool, but they have a purpose.
Yeah.
They do a job, right?
Yeah, and if you raise the clip-ons high enough, they're no longer doing that job. So if you say the comfortable sports bike...
So that's what I meant by like the specs that you can and should look at, which help you understand the vehicles better when you get down to riding and driving. Like for me, for instance, right now, there are a couple of cars that I've driven where the engine character is something which I want to connect to a certain architecture of the engine, but I don't have access to it right now because that's just not being shared anymore, right? So it's like you're stuck in this zone of, okay, this is what it feels like. I would like to confirm it. It's just like for my satisfaction, and you want to close that loop. We can't do it. At one time, we would be looking like bow stroke was something that you'd always be looking at because you're trying to see if that nature is what, and we've seen surprises, bow stroke, the old idea of short stroke engines being super revvy and lacking in torque and all of that. And we've seen that evolution change, like, things changing from that stereotype being broken. Where short stroke engines also started getting good drivability. It was like, oh, okay, this can also happen. Look, nice spread of torque, all of that. So even in that, there was learning for us to see how technology is changing, how vehicles are changing. So there was a lot of learnings through those things. So that can happen, provided you go out and also experience them.
Also, I think part of this spec problem, which I feel like is, I think it also misleads you into thinking that you're making a better decision because you're examining the spec closely. Like we've seen on circles, people who are making these large spreadsheets, and they're basically putting the 9 things that they're comparing, and they're putting all the thing together and say, oh, that specific output is high, that compression is high, and they're inferring various things. I'm not sure you're helping yourself. I would do that maybe at the end of a lot of test rides if I fail to make a decision at the test ride itself. And if I rode 11 motorcycles and came to the conclusion that 9 of these are possibles post a test ride, I just don't have a decision matrix ready yet.
Correct.
Right? But there are people who are saying it's difficult to go to the showrooms, it's easy to make the Excel sheet, let's start there. Wrong approach. You're basically saying I want to make a cake, but I don't have baking powder and the ingredients yet, so at least let me get all the utensils that I will need together. It doesn't produce anything until the baking soda, etc. arrive. And it's the same thing. You've basically created a new way to confuse yourself. Please do not do this to yourself. Right? When you say this thing's specific output is 10% higher than that one, it means nothing unless you've figured out who you are as a person. Do you like highly strung machines or do you not?
I think also the spec sheet table, and this is, I mean, we were actually just discussing this prior to getting in here with Aditya and Stephen, that people are taking things in isolation, but a vehicle is a system of different things coming together.
That's it.
That are intertwined as well, right? So you look at specific output, let's say, like you were saying, which is great. Okay, it might be better, but is the gearbox that good, right? Is the weight, which one of them is better? It's a whole system. Everything has to come together, and as often as not, it's about how it drives at the end of the day that will help you decide.
And it doesn't tell you who you are tomorrow.
Sorry, say that again.
And it doesn't tell you who you are tomorrow. This is especially true for motorcycles.
The spec part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
It's especially true for motorcycles. See, I'm telling you this. If you start riding motorcycles with an interest in riding motorcycles, you're not the same person tomorrow. You've learned 5 things. It's such a high pressure environment. It has so many very serious fallouts, including death, that you will inevitably learn something every day for a long time before it tapers off into a diminishing returns thing, where you'll ride long distances and learn a small thing. This is how it is. And I promise, if you've started riding motorcycles, you pay attention to what you're doing on the motorcycle, you're reading the books and studying the YouTube and doing the practice and all of that, at the end of a year, you will be riding motorcycles completely differently. Today's spec cannot guarantee you will be enjoying that experience in any particular waveform at all. In this year, you will discover you like highly strung machines or you do not. You like fast steering machines or you like stable machines. You enjoy good tires or you enjoy the challenge of slightly inferior tires being made to work really hard. You will figure out whether you rely on equipment to get you out of trouble, which is my tires are shit, or you realize that your skill will get you out of trouble, which means my tires are shit, I'd better learn how to use them until I can afford new ones. There are completely different places you can reach because this whole thing is subjective and feeling based. I'm telling you, at my 14th motorcycle, I am reasonably confident that I will make good decisions now. I'm only reasonably confident, and this is all I have done since 1999. I have done nothing else since 1999, and now I have reasonable confidence. Can I tell you what kind of motorcycle I will buy next? Will it be a sports bike? Will it be another street naked? Will it be a large ADV, small ADV? Will it be a dirt bike? Will it be a scooter? I really do not know.
And in this, I will tell you one thing. I promise you that if you take a little bit more interest in which car you buy and stop thinking of it as a generic mobility tool and think that everything is equal because the specs say they're equal, you will find experiences that are far more satisfying. You will find just changing small things within your car when you're driving, you will find so much more satisfaction. And I'm talking about regular cars on regular commutes, which you will say, and this happens to me every time, and which is why I love the Ignis even today. That every time I get into it, I've been driving all kinds of things, and Siran will be, because on weekends I'm taking him to class and all of that, and he'll be like, which car are we taking? I'll say Ignis. And when we get in the car, and it'll always be, man, that engine, that responsiveness, that freeness, that smoothness. And he's used to it now. But I still, every time when I get back, I find that joy there. And it's nothing to do with the spec. It's about how it's driving.
Yeah.
And you look at the spec, it's going to feel boring. It's less, its output is less than that of the Baleno, even the Ignis. If I'm not wrong, if I remember correctly, it's such an ordinary car in that sense. But the satisfaction is not ordinary; it's extraordinary. And you will find lots of cars like this. Lots of cars. You just have to take the time and the trouble to find them, to realize what's working for you, and then to put in that little bit more effort. Like, I'm sorry, this is about something else we discussed earlier, like the seating position. If your seating position is right, you will engage with the car. On a bike, you don't have an option. You can't sit poorly.
You can. It won't ride very long. Try it.
Yeah, you won't be riding very long, correct? So if you just do those basics, and we take it for granted, and I feel bad every time, like we think that cars are disconnected and all of that. It's not that. It's because we have chosen to be disconnected from them.
And I'll tell you how to remember this, okay? Let's say that your surname is a common surname like Joshi or Gupta or Sharma or Subramaniam, whatever it is. Just think about it for a minute, saying, how would the world look if all the Subramaniams were exactly the same? As you're saying, all the hatchbacks are exactly the same because the spec looks exactly the same. How would it be if all the Joshi Sharmas, whatever applies to you, is exactly the same? How would it feel if I were to assume that on your behalf from the outside? So I go to the MotorInc meetup and I meet 3 Joshis and I make the default assumption that all the Joshis are exactly the same because, hey, all the hatchback spec, everything looks similar, so the Joshis must also be the same. You've suddenly taken so much color out of the world. Because the scientist Joshi is very different from the musician Joshi, who's very different from the stamp collector Joshi, for whatever it's worth. If they're passionate enough, they're all 3 very interesting to talk to. And if they're dispassionate and not engaged in their own lives and they live their lives like it's a coat hanging, dragging on the ground behind them, none of them are really interesting to talk to. It has nothing to do with them being a Joshi in the first place. So whenever you come to the point saying, oh, I'm just buying a car, it's just a functional tool, all the spec looks similar, just take your surname and ask yourself the question, what if the world were to assume that all of us who have the same surname were exactly the same people? I think it'd stop right there. This is why test rides are important. I'm again telling you, everybody thinks that test ride is a chance to figure out I want this car or not. No, go there saying, can I find the greatest reasons never to buy this car? It's much easier to do. It clarifies your boundaries very quickly. And when you start looking for the negatives and fail to find them, you're on to something.
This is actually a very, very good point. I was listening to this podcast from, he's an ex-CIA spy. And he has this, he now does courses or whatever. And he's...
I mean, what else is a ex-CIA spy going to do, really?
So his name is not Andrew Bustamante or something like that. Anyways, very interesting. He's done a couple of those, breaking down the spy movies and saying if the scene is realistic and all or not. So very cool. So he's done a video about, one of those videos is about how do you handle decision making when you're in the field. And he was talking about, let's say you're going out for an operation and you're in a very tense situation where you could be killed and stuff like that. What is the decision making that you're going, what is the process for decision making? They said one large guideline is whatever you are doing, right? Whatever you are comfortable with doing, right? How many ever tasks you have right now. If you are comfortable doing 3, remove 2. So you can focus on just that one thing, right? You have to know what you're comfortable with multitasking with. And if this is your peak at which you can do, right? Usme se fir baki ka nikalo, right? And in the field, he said, how do you prioritize on that list? He said, it's a very simple thing. Do the next simplest thing to do. The next thing that you can do simply and quickly, do that. And in that, this idea fits so beautifully. When you're out there, it's complex to think about whether this is going to work for me or not, whether this vehicle is going to fit into my life as a commuter, for the family, budget, this, that. वो सब छोड़ो. तुमको किस कारण से नहीं खरीदना? You'll find those far more easily than being able to affirm.
And we are designed to nitpick. you're playing to your strength effectively. It's going to annoy the marketing guy who's sitting with you or the sales guy who's trying to sit with you in the car and saying, "Sir, our car is so great," and you're like, "Dude, your tie is not straight. What the hell are you talking about?" In that situation, he's trying to say, "Sir, the sunroof really adds value to your life," or whatever the hell they do nowadays, and you're trying to say, "No, hang on a minute. Why?" What reasons would I, for example, tell my dad or whoever your father figure is or the person that you trust the most when you're bouncing the decision off them? What would I tell them as the reasons to not purchase this particular product? As soon as you think like that, you'll actually start thinking about a much bigger picture. Okay. In the last few weeks, we've had DMs about the RTX 300, which we still haven't tested. And some of the guys have brought up the idea that they have heard from us and elsewhere that TVS Surface is not a great experience. I don't know how you should value that one-to-one. Overall, it's not the best way to do it, but I don't know how you should value it one-to-one, because I can also see that if you were to say, "But Shumi, I will only see this service technician 2 times a year. How much should this weigh on me?" Yeah, good call. Especially because TVS's vehicles outside of their service are typically reliable and high quality product. There's a fairly good chance that outside of service you won't need much until you have a crash, etc., which is a loop anyway. So yeah, if the service is not so great in quality, but you only see them 2 times or 1 time a year, fair enough. It's a deal that you're making. And you could also say the other side by saying KTMs aren't the most reliable, but they're generally helpful and the parts aren't expensive. So yeah, service isn't great, but I am okay with it. I see both of them as a solution to the same problem. Where do you draw the line though? Are you uncomfortable with the idea of saying cheap spares, but I need a lot of them, and I draw the line at that, and I will not buy this from this brand? Sure, good call. Or I will not enable a brand who does not have good service, so I cannot currently buy a TVS, although I like their product. Fair call. But it's easier to reach this call than to say, 2 services a year, bad experience, or usually good experience but may require a lot of maintenance. It's a much harder decision to make, although you're making exactly the same decision. Right? If a person is saying, "I like the Himalayan," it's sometimes easier to say, "Does my wife like the Himalayan?" because she's going to be riding a lot with me. It just makes the decision simpler. Once you buy a bike, if your partner enjoys riding with you, she's not really going to not come on rides with you because you bought the wrong bike. She's going to say, "Please fix the seat." Or if she's more modern as a woman and more hands-on, she'll say, "You go get the seat fixed and I tell you what I want as spec," which is ideal because it's her seat and she should have that option. Switch the genders if you want to. This is not a gender thing for me, right? And I'm saying, if you were to win a bike in a lottery, which is my ultimate solution to this whole thing, would you return it?
Yeah.
Would you return it? If the answer is yes, that's it. You're done with this bike. If you have a spreadsheet with that stupid spec on it, please delete it right now. Because you already told yourself that अगर मैं lottery में भी जीता था ना तो मैं वापस कर देता. It's over. I won it in the lottery. Chances are I would sell the bike off and buy something else with the money. Delete it. You've reached the same conclusion. The first one, you abhor the bike so much you're not even willing to make money off it. The second you say is, "Yeah, but it's all right. I'll ride it a little, sell it off, make some money and buy the one that I actually want." You're already one step forward in your decision-making cycle.
Yeah.
I bought, I have a particular brand of shoes that I really enjoy using. They never go on sale. One time they were on sale. And there was a color that I absolutely detest. But it was the only color in my size. This is what I did. If I won that color in a lottery, would I return it? The answer would be no. It was 25% off, okay? It's not even like a massive discount. What would I use it for? It's a shit color. I'd use it for everything where a shoe color doesn't matter. I'd take it for walks. So it turns out that out of the 6 or 7 pairs of that brand that I own, that pair has the most mileage on it. That pair has come the closest to being threadbare and torn. That's the pair that I bothered to repair. I don't love it still. I use it very hard.
Utility is very high.
And when I finally make a hole in the sole or whatever, there's a hole coming on the side of the shoe, etc. When I throw that shoe, I would have chusowed the value out of a shoe that I did not want to purchase in the first place, because my first glance was, "Oh my God, what is that terrible color? No wonder it's on sale." But I asked the question, if I won this in a lottery, would I return it? And the answer came back saying, no, you wouldn't return it if you won it in a lottery.
Right.
It's been a great investment. So my insight to you is, please stop with the spec sheets. If you study spec sheets enough once to be able to understand the patterns, You know how sometimes there's a table in like the Geekbench CPU tables where they say this is more is better, less is better. If you just get that sense of, and I'm telling you this is subjective, right? So when specific output goes up, that means that engine is producing more performance. That's not necessarily a bad thing. If you like that kind of highly strung engine, it's a good thing. And if you like your engines to be relaxed, chill, and laid back, then that's a bad thing.
And for the car guys, I'm going to suggest let's try this as a test. Don't do the specs at all. Assume for a second that this is a weird world in which no information is being shared. All you have to decide is the test drive. That's it. And this is what we do when we are evaluating as well, right? When we are going, we try and not be exposed to the details so that when we get into the vehicles, we can experience them for what they are and then look back. It's like a whodunit, right?
Yeah.
Then you try and piece together as to why does it feel the way it does feel, right?
Yeah, and then you'll spot the spec that makes the sense and say, oh, no wonder, yeah, it says so right here. And it's a far more accurate conclusion than the other way around saying, oh, it says this, so it must do that. And then you're looking for that rather than looking for what does it actually do.
Which is why that engine thing is stuck in my head, because I think it's a particular kind of format of engine and I don't have the access to that. But I would love to know to confirm it that it is in this space or not. I didn't go in saying that it will feel like this. No, but it felt a particular way. So I want to know it now.
Yeah, I'm militant about this. I don't want to know anything about vehicles before I show up. So when Harley Davidson sent out, you will hear this in the past tense, obviously, because the event would have happened, but they sent out invitations for what they call the Harley Davidson X440T, I think now. Okay, there's an invitation, and they're carrying the same theme as before. There's some spy shot time, and there's some secret letter and all of this kind of nonsense. So the first thing I told the Blue Dart guys, I refuse this courier, please send it back. I don't want to know. Because there's a tablet in it and there's photographs of the bike in it. I just don't want to know.
Okay.
Harley Davidson's marketing is doing what they do. They're trying to preload our opinion into thinking, I'm about to ride a motorcycle that I did enjoy riding the last time and it wasn't so pretty. Look, pretty pictures. I'm saying I refuse to be preloaded. Send me an email. Tell me where the venue is. Tell me what the transportation and logistics are. We will agree on these logistics. I will show up. We'll do the story as we normally do. Have you changed anything on the engine? This is not the time to ask this question. After the test ride, we will ask that question. When I will have a feeling of something feels like it has changed. Did you change something? Far more accurate results than looking at saying, oh, 2 bhp extra. Now you go out and you're like 2 bhp extra, so I'll ring the throttle harder to feel it. Well, if you ring the throttle more, it's going to go faster. Is it because of the extra 2 bhp or because you rung the throttle harder? How do you know now? I don't want to know anything. Let me gather my experience and have a set of feelings about it. And then let's come back and say, why did I feel like this? What does the spec sheet say? What does the engineer say? What does the marketing say? And what does the intent of the product say? When it all fits together, usually you get a good product. When some of the answers are super reluctant, then you know there is a mess up somewhere in the middle and something is being hidden from you. It's not necessarily malicious, but somewhere in the project, some interruption happens.
Which is the beauty now of the other side of this shortage of information, because now it's like, now you just go with what you think is right. And that is awesome as well, which which just works for...
Yeah. So I declared a Harley Davidson some 900 bhp V-twin. Why? Because they said we don't discuss horsepower. We don't declare horsepower numbers. Okay, fine. It's a 900 bhp bike. Take it.
Yeah. So for me, that was the interesting thing, that on the one hand, it is specs that are confusing people, but on the other hand, they can also help you connect with the machine better. And that's provided you put in the work for that as well.
Yeah.
And in the first instance, of course, don't be swept away by that. And that is something I would ask you to do. Try it for yourself. Drive, ride to any which way. Drive before you start closing doors and start looking at specs as a way to solve your decision conundrum. It will not help you. The experience will. And so the specs, use them if you come to that point where you think that will help you understand the vehicle better. Don't let that be the thing that leads you towards the vehicle. Let that clarify what you think about the vehicle later. I think that's how I would put it.
Yeah.
Don't use it. I mean, otherwise it's only confusing you. Yeah. So that was... it's a strange place to be, for sure. I mean, like...
No, your confusion is being weaponized and being used against you for sure.
Because now everything... There was a time when we went through this phase, and I remember that because one of my closest friends was working on, so to speak, on the other side, where he was working with a manufacturer and they were building marketing material and all of that. And he said, dude, the acronyms for everything. And he started throwing something we were on a call. And this is, I'm talking about 10, 12 years back, right? And even earlier, this is the beat diesel.
Yeah.
Right. That's the first time I saw so many acronyms. So many acronyms. And eventually, like, he just threw a couple. He said, just hang on. And when I saw the brochure, I was like, what the hell is this stuff?
Yeah.
But today we've come so far that that is the norm. That you just look at, and for me it's become like acronyms are like, you've just waltzed past right that, because you know this is the part that is distraction. I don't want to be distracted by this. I get to the other stuff. We'll come back to this. When that question arises that what about this? And then you start figuring out what were these actually for. And it has happened so many times that we have asked car makers about certain acronyms which are there in their brochure, and they're like, we'll get back to you.
I'll give you an example. It's fresh in my head. Looking at the Jeeps yesterday, Compass and Meridian. There's a big acronym called ATAVACADAC or something like this.
ATAVACADAC.
That. What is it?
I know what it is.
What is it?
Anytime, anywhere, any device content.
It's a way to help you buy the car. That's listed in the brochure as a feature.
Are you serious? Oh, shucks.
In the same breath as 6 airbags.
No, that's not true.
It's on a page where sales features are there. I will grant that it's not on the safety page as a feature. I will grant Jeep that. But I was looking at ATAVACADAC, whatever the hell this is. I was like, what the hell is this thing? And that's what it is anywhere, anywhere, any content, what the hell. You can, your Jeep Compass configurator will look the same on any device. That's not a feature. That's hygiene.
No. I know whether the genesis of this is from way long back as well. When the idea of the journey for the user. Today we are so digitalized, we take it as normal, right? Where a sign on for the user, whether you do it on your device, on your mobile, whether you do it on your desktop, it connects it for you. That wasn't the case. So they were one of the first to do this as a process for their brands.
So who is the dinosaur here, Karthik, in this room? Is it the customer who has never upgraded their devices, or is it Jeep who has not realized that the whole world has upgraded their devices?
The pain point for so many people in the car industry is the car industry that's the dinosaur.
But that's what they run on, huh? Isn't it? Oh no, somebody pointed out saying most of the juice is actually compressed trees and not dinos. Compressed trees doesn't just sound as cool as dino juice, man. It's not my fault.
Yeah. So.
But car brochures have been so instructive. I'm not saying the bike brochures are always better, but the car brochures are just, oh my god, they're hilarious.
50-50 MB.
I have seen one brochure which says 6 airbags standard and the bottom variant has 2 airbags.
Okay, I think I know who you're talking about.
Standard means it's on all vehicles, huh? I'm just saying.
नहीं standard नहीं होगा.
मैं कल पढ़ा 6 bag standard. फिर मैंने spec में देखा 2 airbags. मैंने कहा यार ये गलत किया. तो I edited it and saved it. Then I read the spec in more detail. No, base variants have 2 airbags. So the brochure has 6 airbags standard, but that particular car, all the cars don't have 6.
Doesn't.
2 variants, one automatic, one AMP.
It's complicated.
No. The more I read the car brochures, I'm so happy that you don't do more. You don't make me do cars.
Yeah.
Because by the time I reach an event and they give me the brochure, I'll already be screaming at somebody.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'm telling you, the only reason why you have variants that are called base plus, base bracket O, then middle plus, middle plus plus, middle plus special, middle bracket O. The only reason to create variants in this way is to confuse people. Imagine if Indian Railways were to give you your seat numbers using the same kind of nomenclature system, nobody would ever sit down.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's also a phase that we are going through. We'll also work through it. It'll take time, but it'll work through, because this kind of change in terms of, let's say, options, powertrains, features, what we've seen, the massification of technology and comfort features and all of that. How much can it go on? It will go on for a bit.
Yeah. Weaponized confusion cannot last.
This cannot last, because this will hurt everybody in the long run if it continues like this. It has to get simpler, because the rate of change will hurt consumers. This lack of clarity will hurt everybody. It's not going to help. So this has to get simpler. It has to become cleaner. But it's a question of how things evolve in this entire ecosystem. EVs, hybrids, tomorrow we start getting CNG, CBG, and all of that hydrogen. Then there'll be a new set of variables for us to play around with, which will bring in a different, different aspects for people to consider. But it has to be simplified. And it will happen, but it'll take time. Usual churning point, right? Anyways, so yeah, that was where I came from for the specs angle to it. It's an easy crutch to rely on. Don't.
Yeah, it's more convenient than anything else.
See.
Also, conveniently misleading in the way things are right now.
And this is literally like that. क्या बोलते हैं? Arms escalation. एक ने किया तो the other person will do it. Before you know it, you've bought into it, whatever it may be, and it just feels like that this is the de facto norm, right? And this is all right, and this is okay, and this is how it is. But no.
Yeah, they're all selling you what they made. They're not telling you what the benefit is, and they're hoping that you don't figure out where the benefits really lie, because that might be one from the bottom.
And again, that's what I mean. Like, it may have happened once because of something that you had to. It's a silly thing. Like, you want it to be like 20 cool features, so they added one thing which was a stupid acronym, and suddenly it becomes like, hey, they had 20 acronyms, but we only have 19. We gotta have 21 now. It's literally as silly as that. Believe me, a lot of the stuff is as silly as that. So you have to step out of that circle of chaos, that confusion, and pick for yourself. And that you have to do.
Yeah. And but if you have lots of brochures because you're in the process of buying, I'll tell you one thing it does solve unequivocally. If you're having trouble falling asleep, scroll to the section where they say digital features, and you'll usually find something that says 55 digital features, 200 digital features, and everything from the backlight to the fact that the damn thing turns on when you turn on your machine will be listed as a feature. Start reading that list, you'll be asleep by 7.
Connected car features.
You'll be asleep by 7, I promise.
Ignore.
No. Don't use it as a buying decision. Use it as a sleeping aid. See, the brochure does not emit blue light. Makes it easier to sleep. And you start reading, it says backlight turns on. That's so boring. Why are you telling me this? Then it'll say the numbers also show up. Yeah, but they're supposed to. I mean, what is the point here? When you turn on the car or bike, the screen lights up by itself. As opposed to what, there'll be a crank handle there. So they're saying the obvious things to you. It gets boring really quickly. Because, I mean, you are intelligent, right? You just fall asleep.
Cool.
Like, it says stuff like Bluetooth is a separate feature, and it connects to your phone with Bluetooth is a separate feature in many brochures.
My brochure got bigger, baby.
Yeah. Luckily, they're still at the stage of phone calls. It's not receive phone call and outgoing phone call. It is not receive SMS and outgoing, but that's next, I mean.
SMS.
Right now, it's a very neat category called SMS notifications. They've not listed all the apps from which you can get an equivalent of SMS notifications. It doesn't list Instagram.
My God.
See. That's what happens in the digital part of the brochure. That's what I was trying to prove.
Okay. Where it can get to, please don't give people ideas. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, look, if they want to waste money printing more and more of these stupid brochures, welcome to it. I mean, it makes no sense to me.
3.
More people
2,
will sleep earlier.
1.
No. Digital features, Karthik, 55. 54. 3, 2, 1. Disconnect.